Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning on a bright and early Monday morning. We're happy to have you. My name is John Shoemaker from the Department of Educational Technology, and I'm here today to be your moderator and just introduce our guest speakers as we are going to share some SIS and Google Classroom integration with you guys today. So before we get started, I want to let you know that we do have a couple of things. If this is your first time joining us, thank you. Welcome. We are streaming live on YouTube, so there are some people in the chat box who have a wrench next to their name. Those are our moderators. Because we're using Google Live, though, you will not have video or audio. Your way of interacting with us is through that chat box. So over there on the right-hand side is a chat box. You can type in whatever you want and ask your questions there, and our moderators will be there to answer your questions. So please use that chat box. I've seen it's been active a lot already. So keep using that to share your ideas with us and ask your questions. This session is being recorded. It will be live right back on the same URL you used to get here. So whatever link you use to get to this website, it's the same link to watch the recording or share the recording with your colleagues or your friends or whoever you need to share it with. Also, we ask that you like this video down below. Just give us a like. We're trying to get our subscriber base up as well. So you can click the subscribe button down below. And if you hit the bell, it'll actually email you every time we go live. Next week, we actually have 6 full sessions of content that we're going to be doing just from the EdTech team. So that will actually notify you when we go live, and you can come and watch it live, or you can join as a and watch the recording. So please feel free to subscribe and like this video. We also have a hashtag if you want to share on Twitter. It's ETPBCSummerPD, and we will actually be showing you our website anyway, so we're not going to review much about the website right now. So with that, I want to introduce our 2 guests today. Today we have from the EdTech team, Dominique, and from FTE, we have our friend Angela. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today. They're going to be here today to share the content. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves, and then I will jump away from you guys.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dominique. I'm from the EdTech training team. I am so excited to share this new SIS integration with you today. So thanks, everyone, for joining. And we hope that you can take away some strategies and tips to make this integration a little bit easier. So thank you.
I'm Angela with the FTE team, and I'm just here to walk you through the process through the SIS.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. First, again, just thank you guys for joining. This is a much awaited integration, and we're really excited to share all about it. So first, I just want to do a little housekeeping, explain to you where you can find some resources, and also how you can get started with this integration. So we're going to start with SIS. So for those of you who may be new to our district, you access SIS from your portal. So after you log into your portal, you'll get a screen that looks like this. By default, you should have the SIS tab. If you do not, you can just go into and search it. Okay. But it should be there by default. You want to go ahead and pick the one that has the red banner around it that says Student Information System. And this is what it will look like. Yours might look slightly different because I have administrator access, but you should all have this little section down at the bottom called SIS Support and Resources. For those of you who've used this before, this may be familiar to you. We're going to focus on this first link here that says SIS Resource Center. And you will land on this page. So there's a lot of helpful documentation in regards to SIS in general. We are going to focus on this 4th link that says SIS integration with Google Classroom. Once you land on this page, you will see some documentation here. They're kind of segmented by grade level. We'll discuss why that is the case a little later. But what we want you to do is to click on this link. And this link will take you to the EdTech training page where all these documents live, but there's also some other pertinent information regarding this integration that we will want you to look at. So in a sense, you can click on these documents, but the go-to recommendation is going to be to click here. And you will land on the SIS Google Classroom integration page. For those of you who've attended any of the live streams in the past that EdTech has conducted, this site may look familiar to you. Over here on the side are all of the resources for all the different live streams that we've done in the past, in addition to additional resources for EdTech. So this page lives under live streams, and it's going to be under Google Classroom. So this integration, again, is much awaited. There's two main pieces that allow this to be super effective for teachers. The first piece is rostering your students with Google Classroom. When we went home in March and kind of the masses started to use Google Classroom, we all experienced having to communicate to our students and families class codes or inviting them via email, and how much of a headache that could be sometimes. This integration solves that problem. With the click of a button, you can automatically roster your students to Google Classroom. So that's going to be a huge win for all teachers at every level. And then for our secondary teachers, there is an automatic grade passback from Google Classroom to SIS. So we know in the past, the only way to do that was to use a CSV file or to manually upload grades into Google Classroom and then do it again in SIS. This integration solves that problem as well and allows the syncing to happen with the click of a button. So two really big wins for our district and for our teachers. I'm really excited to share that with you today. So on this page, there's also a link to this YouTube video. Like John said earlier, once this live is completed, this will be a regular YouTube video that lives on our YouTube page. It'll be available for you to view at any time. And then once you go further down, we sectioned the page off into elementary and to secondary. For those of you watching today, we are only going to focus on the rostering piece of this integration. The grading passback piece is still being tweaked. So we'll come to you at a later date, possibly this week, and we'll go over the grading aspect of this integration. But for elementary teachers, this integration is only applicable to you in regards to rostering. The grading piece has to have numerical grades. And so we know in our elementary classrooms, we use standard space grading. So the grading aspect of this integration will not be used for elementary. So these are all the documentations, and we're going to go through those. And then at the bottom, there is some support information. We are going to encourage you to reach out to your school-based support first. So that would be your gradebook managers, your trailblazers that are using this integration, your school techs for the most speedy and effective support for this integration. And then as always, we at the district are available to assist you if you need any help. So that would be on the SIS side, contact this email here for our FTE team. And then for anything Google Classroom related, it would be myself and my colleague, Terry Miller. Okay. So with that, we're gonna get started on the first steps that need to be taken to integrate with Google Classroom and SIS. So, and actually the first step has nothing to do with SIS at all. So in order for this integration to work, you have to create your Google Classrooms first, okay? So for most of you, this will be a refresher. And for some of you who are new to our district, this is the first time that you're working with Google Classroom. So I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page and understood how to do that, okay? So this is a guide to how to do that. So if you need to go back and refresh your memory, if you don't want to look at the video, this is a step-by-step guide of how to make a Google Classroom. So the first thing that you're going to do, it all starts at the portal, much like most of our applications. And if you do not see Google Classroom, like here's mine, and it's in recent because I've used it today. But if it doesn't show up in your portal, all you have to do is search for it, and you're actually going to search for the word classroom. If you search for the word Google, it doesn't always come up. Okay, and then once you search, you'll get Google Classroom. You will land on what I like to call the Google Classroom dashboard. This is just a page where it lists all of the Google Classrooms that you are a teacher, a co-teacher, or a student of. And so they will all be here. If you archived all of your classes last year and you have not created any new classes, this screen should be blank. And if you're not a part of any other classrooms, this would be blank. If you see your old classes from last year, we do have a guide on the EdTech training site that walks you through how to archive your classes. We do not recommend reusing any Google Classrooms from last year. Just archive those and then start fresh. So to create a new one, you're going to go over here to the plus sign, and you're going to click Create Class. So give it a descriptive name. I always like to start mine with my last name. If you are secondary, you can say something like period 1, and then you can give it the subject if you want to. If you are in elementary and you are compartmentalized and you have 2 homerooms, you can do something like your last name and homeroom 1, and if homeroom 1 is ELA, you can go ahead and put that here. The section, again, this will be equivalent to a class period or a homeroom. Section, subject, and room are not required, but you can use them if you want to. So I'm going to leave them blank. The room number, we're distance learning right now, so you probably don't have a room number handy. If you know your room number for when we go back to brick and mortar, you can feel free to put that here, or again, you can leave all of these blank. And then you click Create. It does sometimes take a while for this to generate, so don't be alarmed if it takes, almost a minute or so for it to happen. And then that's your classroom. So if you go back to your classroom dashboard, that new classroom is here. Now, we do have some additional steps that we recommend that you take when you do create a Google Classroom, such as disabling notifications and things like that. I'm not going to go through that through this webinar, but I will encourage you to, again, go back to this support page for SIS and Google integration on the EdTech training site. And if you open the guide for how to create a Google Classroom, the step-by-step of what I just did is here. And also on the second page, these are additional steps to customize notifications so that you're not getting emails and being bombarded every time a student turns in something or writes a comment, things like that. So highly recommend that you go through these steps after creating each Google Classroom. All right, so we're going to take it to Angela now, and she's going to walk you through how to roster your students via SIS into Google Classroom.
Angela, you'll have to actually come back over to StreamYard real quick. Your mic is muted.
There you go. So from your SIS, you want to make sure you're in your gradebook grades. Inside gradebook grades, you'll see there's a new icon in the upper left-hand corner called Link Class. This is where your Google Classroom linking will begin. All your classes will have the same link. So if you switch classes, you'll see that this link class is also available in all the other classes. So to link your Google Classroom that you just created to your section in SIS, you have to make sure that your Google Classroom is already created, just like Dominique explained. You click Link Class, and what it will do is it will ask you to select the Google account in which you want to create a link to that. So what you want to do is click Sign In. This is going to be your palmbeachschools.org email address, Google, that you'll want to click on. So you'll select that palmbeachschools.org account. It'll ask you for access. So you just want to scroll down to the bottom, click Allow. Once you allow, it'll pop your name with your email address into the Google account that it selects. It'll then have a list of all of your Google Classrooms that you have created. So you'll pick the one that you just created for that specific section. So if you've labeled it period 1, period 2, and you happen to be in that period, that's the one you'd make sure you select. Today, we're selecting SIS and Google Classroom Integration 817. Once you select the classroom from the drop-down, you go ahead and click Select Course. It will then link your Google Classroom to the SIS section, and it'll roster every single student that's in that class. You'll see it says completed, successfully sent invitation to 1 student. That's because 1 student has been linked to this class. So if you have 25 students, it'll send invitations to 25 students. Also, after you've linked your class, if you have any new students who happen to come in day 3 or day 4, those students will appear, automatically get their invitations and appear on your Google Classroom list. Once you close everything out, the screen refreshes, and then you can go to your Google Classroom.
So Angela, if you want to pop back over to the StreamYard link, we do have a couple of questions coming in, if you don't mind, real quick.
Not at all.
So a couple of them, there was the question about the whole school for fine arts classes. And I believe the answer is still right now, only if you can only sync it if that class is actually in the SIS and rostered, right?
That's correct. You have to have a section in SIS with all your classes. So if your fine arts classes, they are all in SIS. So you would link each class. And you can link them all to the same Google Classroom if you like.
Okay. And the other question that kind of goes along with that, what if they have more than one Google Classroom? So they're just going to have to go through the process multiple times. They'll go to each grade book, right?
Exactly. So they'll just switch to the next section and then link that next Google Classroom, then link to period 3 and link to period 3's Google Classroom.
Okay, and two questions that kind of go along the same line is, should we wait for the setup? And some have said the schools are staying to wait because they're still working on schedules. Do you have any suggestions for them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say as you can see, it only takes literally about 30 to 60 seconds to do it per section. So there's really no rush to roster your students until you know that they're ready. Once you roster students, it's going to send that invite immediately to the student. So if your schedules aren't finalized, it would be best to wait a little bit till they're more final.
Great. That was actually a question that just popped in too, asking about, can you hold off sending emails? So definitely wait until your schedules are finalized. Wait for your admins to say they're finalized.
Exactly.
And also, I believe you kind of hinted on this, but I just want to make sure to reiterate, it will actually automatically drop students when their schedule changes? Or
No. So the integration is kind of one way. So it will add students to Google Classrooms, but it will not delete them. So that process will be the same. If the student changes, let's say from period 5 to period 1, they will drop off of your gradebook in SIS, but they will remain in period 1 for Google Classroom. So you'll have to delete them manually in Google Classroom. And then once you resync your period 5, then that invitation will be automatically sent to that student for the new Google Classroom.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm going to let you guys go back to it. There are some questions that Dominique is actually going to answer right now. So we'll get to those in a second, but I just wanted to cover some of those. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Dominique. Go ahead and continue.
Okay. So once students receive this invitation, and again, I want to reiterate this for everyone, students should be accessing Google Classroom from their portal tile, just like teachers would. So once they click on Google Classroom, they will also land on this dashboard page. And what's going to happen is once they're invited, they're going to get a little pop-up that looks like this, right? So instead of it saying Mr. Satterini, it'll say SIS and GC, which is the class that Angela just synced, and they will simply click join and they're in. So there's no need for codes. There's no need to check emails. They literally go to Google Classroom and click join for each class that they have been invited to. So from the teacher side of things, this is the class that we just linked. If I go to the people tab, Gavin, which is the only student that was in the SIS gradebook that we just synced, he already has accepted that invitation. And the way that you can know that the student has accepted, their name will be grayed out like up here if they have only been invited. Once they have accepted it, their name will turn black. So that's how you know that the student has engaged with your request and now they're actually part of your Google Classroom. So see how easy that was? We didn't have to send any codes, do any emails, and it's also easy for our students because they can just literally go to the portal, go to Google Classroom and click join. Especially for our incoming kindergartners, anybody new to our district that is new to our portal in general, this will be such an effective way to get them engaged with Google Classroom.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's so great because all you have to do is click that sync button each time you get a new student that arrives into your classroom, and it'll automatically send them to your Google Classroom.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say, Angela. I just brought that question up. I'm sure you saw it in the chat box. So you do have to hit the resync, and we just remind the resync is in the SIS, right? Not in Google Classroom.
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. So you just have to resync each time you get a student. So, yeah, so it's easy, right? It's not very difficult for you to sync your classes now. I see a couple of questions in there. I'm sorry. there are some options to link each section. So as Angela indicated earlier, if you only want to have one large Google Classroom, maybe you're an elective or something like that, you still have to go to each section in your gradebook, but you then can sync it to that. When you choose the Google Classroom, you choose the Google Classroom.
Correct.
So can they still send invites even though they've already manually added people? Is that a possibility?
Yes, absolutely. If there's any students whose information in SIS matches, so let's say they manually added to the Google Classroom, if their student number and names match, that invitation won't be sent because those students are already on the Google Classroom. But if there's any errors in the manual entry or additional students who weren't invited, those invitations will be sent.
And just for clarification, resyncing does not remove the student, it just adds new ones, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
All right.
One thing that I wanted to point out, in addition to creating your Google Classroom first, in SIS, if you are going to use things like grading categories or weighting or anything like that, you also need to set that up before you sync your classes. So make sure your Google Classrooms are created and that you set up your gradebook before you sync your class to the Google Classroom. And if you need documentation for that, it lives on the SIS support site. Angela, I think it's here. And then there's different guides for elementary, secondary, about how to add weighting and add categories. So you make sure you want to do that before you do any syncing as well.
Yeah, so you definitely want to do that in the gradebook before you sync your classes. So will parents be automatically invited now as well, or is that not a feature?
So
no, just the students.
Yeah, just the students. But however, if the parent has been invited previously or for another class, they should automatically be attached to that student. So if they've been invited for period 1, they should carry over to another Google Classroom that they're a part of.
So what happens, Angela, then if they already synced their gradebook or their Google Classroom roster and they did not set up their weighting?
I don't believe that's going to be an issue. Honestly, we have a question out to the vendor about that, but I did a test and I didn't set up my category and weightings first, and I didn't have an issue with it during my testing environment. So I don't think it's going to be a problem, but we have a question into our vendor just in case.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So with that, Dominique,
can I add something to that?
Yeah, please.
I think what they're referring to when in the training documents, which we'll have to clarify, is that you have to have your categories and your weights set up before you import grades. Once you start importing grades, it's very difficult to then change that categories and weighting, and it's going to affect student grades. So I think that's what they're referring to, but it's not very clear, so that's why we're having that question. But if you have no assignments and no grades, just add your categories and weighting, and it shouldn't be a problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. There is another question that I'll grab from you guys. You do not actually set up Google Meets through the SIS. Google Meets are set up directly in Google Classroom. So all that information is on our website. We're also doing a Google Classroom 101 next week, so we can help you with that. To invite parents, if you've never invited a parent before, there's the Invite Guardians link right next to the student's name. You just click that and you type in, I think Dominique's going to be bringing that up, I'll put it in the stream. You just click on that Invite Guardian link right there, you type in their email, and then they will get an email that they then have to go through the process to link to that student. So that's how you actually go through and add a parent to the to the Google Classroom. And unfortunately, I saw the question a couple of times, so I'll address as well. This is actually not part of that summer PD where you can earn points for your buckets. We apologize. I should have said that up front. This actually was added on right at the last second because it just happened, and we know that you guys want to roster your classes. So we wanted to make sure to get this information out to you right now. So we do appreciate that. So ladies, do you have anything else you need to share?
So again, we're going to come to you at a later date to go over the grading aspect of this integration. If you are an elementary teacher, this is sort of the scope of how this integration applies to you. It kind of stops at rostering because, again, since elementary uses standards-based grading and not numerical grading, the syncing of assignments and grades does not apply. So if you're elementary, you really don't have to come back to the next webinar. Feel free to if you want to, but you don't have to. For our secondary teachers, you definitely want to attend that next webinar where we're going to go into detail about syncing grades and assignments. And if you have any questions in the meantime, again, please reach out to your school level support, gradebook manager, any trailblazers, your school tech. If not, these are some email addresses where you can contact the FTE team or the Google Classroom team for EdTech support, and we'd be happy to assist you.
And as a reminder, I just want to make sure everyone knows that this does not count towards, again, that bucket. The recording of this session is also the same link that you're on right now. And if you want to know how and when we're going to be doing the next live stream on the SIS, the best way is to subscribe down below or visit our website at edtechtraining.palmbeachschools.org. And that will allow you to see our calendar. And as soon as we have the date, we will put it on our calendar and we will not have any issues with that. So just go ahead and check right there on the front page of our website and it will tell you when that session is going to be happening. We do have other sessions, like I said, next week, but this one is for Google Classroom. This is just the rostering piece today. So Angela and Dominique, I'm going to pull you guys down for 1 second as I finish up, and then I'll let you guys finish the session. So as we were sharing before, we do have some office hours this Thursday from 10 to 11, and as I just indicated, there's that calendar on our front page. I want you to know that in that calendar for office hours, you just click it, and then you click the join. It's actually a Google Meet, so we can help you if you need help. We will do our best to try to get someone from who's working on this integration in that office hours as well, in case there's any questions on those things. But we will have office hours continuing every Thursday. We're not doing live streams. Our EdTech support site is always available. It is going to have the most up-to-date information all of the time. So please always check there. Like we said, talk to your Trailblazers first, talk to your gradebook manager first, but also please check the website in advance as well, because that has all the information that we have on all the tech integration that we have. I see Angela's typing furiously in the chat box too, answering lots of questions. We see them coming up. Angela or Dominique, is there anything else you want to add there on what you're seeing in the chat box?
No, I'm going to stay in here a while, answer any questions. I think we did have Linda a little before ask if she could see the resyncing. I don't know if we want to do that. It's
no,
just
go ahead. Go ahead on your screen.
So if you're back in your gradebook grades here and it says sync class, you can do it as many times as you want. So you just click sync class when you have a new student. And if you have a new student, it'll say invite sent and it'll say how many were sent. If you don't have any new updates, it'll just say completed and sync complete, like here. So you can just keep clicking sync class anytime you feel it's necessary. And it's as simple as clicking that button.
Awesome. Really awesome. Anyone else, any other questions you feel like we need to address? Otherwise, whoops, sorry. Inception. Anything else we need to share, or we're good to go?
I think we're good to go. Just awesome. Going through the chat.
Okay. So even when we end the live stream, you can still stay in the chat and ask questions. We'll stay in the chat box answering questions for as long as we need to. Otherwise, on behalf of the entire educational technology team and also now the FTE team, thank you for joining us. We're happy that you joined us, and we will see you next time. Have a great day, everyone.